these words and sing these words after losing his wife and kids. Father, all these light and momentary afflictions that we experience and we think they're so big, Father. May we be able to say, it is well with our soul. In these coming days, in these coming hours, in these coming months, in this coming year where we are going to be tested. And our faith is going to be tested in ways that has never been tested before. Lord, may we be able to say deep from the depths of our soul that it is well because we have you. Not that our circumstances are going our way, because the circumstances and the things that we probably want in life in the next year are probably not going to go our way. Father, may we be able to say that. May we lean on each other in difficult, tough times. It doesn't matter what our bank account says. It doesn't matter what our house looks like. It doesn't matter if we don't get the promotion at the job. It doesn't matter what the situation is with our kids. It is well with our soul. We refuse to be a people that will live and evaluate everything by the circumstances and what the world says success looks like. It is well with our soul when we're up and we're down, like the Apostle Paul, shipwrecked, stoned, went through all different trials and situations. Whatever we go through, it is well with our soul today. We will sing that until we have no breath left in our lungs. Church, let's sing it one more time. Sing it like you mean it. Sing it like your life is on the line right now. Sing it, church. Come on, let's go. Sing it one more time. Come on, sing it. Whatever you came in here with today, whatever your situation is, come on, sing it. Doesn't mean you have to enjoy what you're going through. It doesn't mean it feels good as you're going through it, but you know that he's there in the midst of it. That song. I just felt it as we were singing. We're going to need that song in a new way, I think, in these coming days.
Through it all, it is well. And through it all, my eyes are on you. It is well with me.
Amazing when you look at the pages of Scripture how many people were able to say that. It was well with their soul. Go to Hebrews chapter 11. Go to the Hall of Faith. People that were thrown to the lions. People that were sawed in two. They said it was well with their soul. Because they knew what their soul was attached to. May that be for us in these days. Well, church, children, taking them out or what? No, children, we're good. Everybody's here. We are always excited as a team, as a leadership team, when we have these kinds of Sundays. So you may have walked in like, I didn't know what I was walking into, and you thought you were hearing a traditional sermon. No, we have a panel here today, and we do this roughly quarterly, where we try to look at what's going on in the culture, what's going on in the world, especially what's going on in Israel, and how it pertains to biblical prophecy and how we're supposed to live. The Bible says, one of my favorite passages, the sons of Issachar in the book of Judges, they knew the times in which they lived. And it's important for us to stop and look at the times in which we live and realize, look at God's prophetic clock, right? And see, and how are we supposed to live in light of that, right? And living in light of eternity. So just a couple of quick announcements before I bring up the team. One, we have water baptism next Sunday. Yeah. Always a momentous occasion in the life of the church. As people are going to go in the waters of baptism. That'll happen in here. If you have any questions and you weren't able to meet with Naeem at 9:15 this morning before the meeting, and you would like to, talk to him or one of us about getting baptized, please see us after the meeting. That's one. Number two, what's that? And 9:15 next week. Thanks, bud. And this Wednesday, we have another men's fire group outside here on the property. So hopefully you can join us. How many guys are planning on attending that? The first two have been a lot of fun, and it starts to get a little bit colder. Let's see what the attendance looks like. But yeah, we're excited about that. And number three, as it pertains to what we're going to do up here today, if you have any questions, be thinking about that. We're going to open the floor at the end for you to, anything that you would like to share regarding what we talk about here today. Hard to winnow down there's so much that's going on in the world, and it seems like things are just speeding up, right, exponentially. So not so easy for us as a team to try to get all the information. There's so many other topics and things we want to hit, but this is what we have for you this morning. So I would ask Naeem, John, Ted, come on up and join me for a conversation. Do we have the clicker anywhere? Only because I have a lot of slides. And I would like to be able to control that. I don't know if it's maybe inside the pulp. Oh, it was over there, and I just didn't see it. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Make it more homey.
Oh. It was well with my soul until I saw the flowers. Don't want them. How we doing, gents? Good? You ready to go? Well, before we jump into some of the more interesting, I would say, events that are happening on the world stage, what's up? You need a new mic? You need a mic? That would help. Anyone but the yellow one. There's another one over here, John. Do you need one? You good? Naeem, you good? Okay. All right. Well, first thing here, I didn't bring my glasses. Good job by me. To get and Ted and I saw this on the same day. This is from the Christian Post, and I marked a note, and you sent me a text. This is pretty cool. It says, to get emotional benefits from going to church, gosh, I really can't see. Believers must attend regularly, all right? Don't laugh if you're young. What's that?
Imagine if it was the old projector.
Yeah, even more trouble. Well, this was really good, guys. A study about, I think it was like a couple of thousand people via their smartphones. I guess believers, right, who only attend church maybe a few times a year. We talk. Thanks, Jamal. All right. Principal during the weekend. He's like, it's tough. Well, this study, right, it says believers who only attend church a few times a year yet expect to get an emotional lift that will last need to go more frequently. Wow, right? So, hey, we want to commend you. You're here today, this morning, right? You're here for a lift, maybe. But the problem is it's not going to last, right, unless you're coming on a regular basis. What'd you all think of this?
I just want to say one thing to set the table as we get into this.
Yeah,
it's just that you guys have seen us up here. We've done this several times. And, I feel like I'm going to speak to a little bit of the elephant in the room that, we come up here and we say things and we talk about current events and we point at things and we go, oh, man, keep an eye on that, keep an eye on that. And, here we are. We're still here. We're still doing stuff, right? We still see things, I just feel like I want to just give you perspective to just remind us, like, it's a little bit like, if you were cooking something on your stove at home and you got some vegetables, whatever, and you just turn the heat up a little bit. Well, you don't really see anything right away, right? It doesn't change much. The vegetables are still hard. You're waiting for them to soften and everything, right? That's kind of what's happening. I just want to remind us, like, we say some things and, oh man, nothing happened. I guess they're all, crazy or whatever, or, like, oh, see, I knew it was nothing. Maybe, but we know the book and we know where it's heading. And so we just want to set the table perspective-wise to remind us that these are like little checkpoints, temperature checks. Like, we're just telling you, like, hey, let's take a step out of traffic. Let's think about things for a second. Let's see where things are going, compare it to what's going on in the Word. And that's what we're trying to do, is give some perspective. So to that point, to this first topic, you're not going to get that stuff. Like, if you're not out there and you're just living your life and you're doing work and then you're coming home and you're going to bed and doing all those things, this is a place that we try to be responsible as leaders and as a church to say, yeah, you need the Word and everything, but we're going to tie the Word into what's happening in your life and give you some perspective. And that's what the point of these whole things is. So I'm just trying to use that as an example.
Good job. Yeah.
I think that this is true all through the times. It's more true today than it was 40 years ago, because a lot of the organizations that you could get, quote, fellowship in, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, 4-H, all kinds of stuff that when we were younger, you could be in the community with, you can't anymore. They've all disappeared because we're all home on our phones, especially the young people. And I think it's fallen. The safety net is now, well, communities, churches, mosques, temples, but mostly we think Christian is, because it's the truth, it's the best for community. But there's also politics, right? It divides and it collects. That's all that's left. And so it all falls on both of them. And I think, to James's point, it says you attend church regularly. I think it's like taking a vitamin pill. If you come to church once a week, you're like, I don't know if I'm not really feeling like part of the community. But if you come twice a week, it's like taking 2 vitamin pills. Eventually, you're going to feel that community. And it takes some time. I mean, like, we have the men's group on Tuesdays. We have this fire on Wednesdays where ladies, we rip off our shirts, we howl at the moon, we run around the fire. We don't let you know. We don't show you that video clip. But, we're men. We're talking men stuff. So, and I can't do that in the office anymore. I can't, right? Not run around that. You know what I mean? I can't talk openly about politics or anything else in the office. It's off limits. Wherever you go, it's probably the same thing. This is only where I can be myself.
I want to
And
work
it's
with
healthy.
Try being in a classroom where you have seniors and you have to talk in a government classroom and you have to talk about politics. It's fun. Yeah.
My only
Fun.
add to
ahead.
what was just said is just the focus, right? So everything outside of these walls and this community is an echo chamber trying to sell you something or trying to make you think a certain type of way. This is the only place you're going to go where you're focused solely on Jesus Christ and his love for you and his body, which is different colors, different genders, different economic places. This is where the life of Christ resides. And the further you are from it, you just have to understand how bombarded you are. When you realize how bombarded it is out there, you understand how much you need the sanctuary here. And that's within each other, the life of Christ within each other.
Wow.
Who sang The Eve of Destruction? Remember, he became a Christian? Barry Maguire. Barry Maguire became a Christian, and some of his friends who didn't, they said, well, they're brainwashing you. He said, yes, but at least I'm choosing who washes my brain.
Where do you come up with all this stuff? Where do you get it's like every day on Threads, he'll send just a quote or something, and just
A lot
it's
in there
so
over the
good.
years.
Yeah. All right, you ready, boys, to hit some of the heavy stuff?
Just going to leave one more thing on
Yeah,
this.
go
though.
ahead.
There's a hidden message in this, even the caption there.
Hidden message.
Well, in the sense that the message is really about consistency. And it's, and look, a lot of people, you guys, we're preaching to the choir, right? You guys are showing up, and there's obviously a lot of people out there that aren't coming at all, and there's, no vitamins, right? And that's really where we want to, you know the numbers. You've thrown them out a bunch of times, like 40%, 50% since the pandemic, that church attendance is, So it's not, obviously there's emotional benefits, but the key here is not just get the emotional benefits once in a while. It's like, it's consistency, and it's the same with your walk is what I'm saying. Like, it's not about coming to church. I mean, church is great and we need it, but it's this consistency that comes through in your entire walk. Like, if you're walking consistently with the Lord on your own, it's easy to come to church, right? Because it just kind of fits. But when we're kind of like all over the place, then it's harder because it's like, it feels like once in a while,
John, I'm going to, one last thing on this first thing.
No, we're going to spend the rest of the time on this, I think.
Trying to get more people to church, I guess.
Yeah.
Is that the goal?
The Christian post. This is a post. This is a position. It's strategic. And your involvement in it matters. It's not just your Christian walk. Your Christian walk allows, enables, encourages, and helps to foster other Christian walks in the community, in your workplace, in your family. And so when we make it individualized, well, I don't feel like it. Well, guess what? Okay, you don't feel like it, but guess what? Maybe somebody needs to see your face. Maybe somebody needs to hear your voice. Maybe somebody needs to hear your testimony. It is a post and a position that allows us to be a light on a hill.
You guys are on fire already. We're 5 minutes in, and all three of you are on fire. I'm just kind of getting out of the way, all right? So I'm just going to throw this up, and then whoever wants to jump in, let's get into it. We're going to turn our eyes now to the Middle East and Israel, and we had a lot of different articles and just different news that is taking shape, and I'm going to hit you guys with the first two here. A lot is going on with Turkey and Erdogan, the leader over there. This first article you can see here talking about Erdogan calling for an Islamic alliance against Israel and calling for an Islamic offensive. And then the second article right here from the Jerusalem Times of Israel, Erdogan demanding Muslim leaders convene summit over the Temple Mount expansion. So a lot really there, 36 acres there. I mean, the most really contested spot on the planet, right? All the three major world religions kind of coalesce right there. So what are you guys, I'm very open-ended, what are you seeing with the pressure that has been ratcheted up or just the tension that is happening? And we'll move into more of this. The third one I'm purposely leaving as it pertains to this. I think that one is the most powerful one. But any comments that you want to share on what we're seeing over there with this alliance too with some of these other countries?
I'll just make a general statement. I just think that it's a little bit like what I opened up with about this temperature raising. Whether it was World War I or World War II or what's going on previously with the Iraq wars or the Ukraine war, all these things, they're not just one-offs. If you go back and you look, you can see that there's puzzle pieces that are just being laid out and fitting together, and they're all heading towards what we know is in the Bible, which is where things are heading against Israel. And so they're not. We're looking at them big picture, and we're coming to you and saying, "Hey, keep an eye on this. Look at this." And it's easy to just go, "Well, but nothing really happened." I mean, we don't have to look very far. I mean, Israel, the attack's coming up to October 7th.
October 6th or 7th, yeah.
7th, yeah. So, but I'm just saying, these are all little pieces of the puzzle that are all fit together. It's amazing. There's a purpose behind the Ukraine wall. Since Ukraine, right? You've seen Iran and Russia become very close. That's in your Bible. Now Turkey's kind of taking the lead. Turkey was the Ottoman Empire before World War I, and so you see they had to be moved out of the way in World War I so that things could start happening with, right? The Jewish people, this is all prophesied, right? They were, lost their homeland, the Holocaust, right? Then they all came back. That was prophesied. So you just see, I just want to keep a perspective. There's pieces of the puzzle that we're watching fill on the board, and it's like a big chessboard, and everything's getting moved, and he's obviously the one playing the game, and he knows where everything's going. He's 100 steps ahead, but anyway.
Yeah, we talked about that yesterday, even with Ukraine and Russia.
Two things. Some of us who've been around a while remember Lance Lambert. He was a good friend of Derek Prince, if you don't know Lance Lambert. I remember it was 1980. We were in Virginia at the conference, those of us who went, and he always said, watch Turkey for the end signs. So it always stuck with me. Okay, I'll give you my geopolitical take on what's happening. What continent is Turkey on? Both. It's both Asia and Europe. They usually look east and west, right? When the Soviet Union was here, they were looking west. They joined NATO. Now, this Erdogan character, he's like Putin. He's a maniac, but he's brilliant. So he plays to the Muslims, because he is Muslim. They turned the Hagia Sophia, went to the biggest domed church, Christian church, into a mosque. Why is he all of a sudden has this power that he had, right? This influence? Because the big king has been wounded in the Middle East, and that's Saudi Arabia. Why? Because they used to be the biggest oil producer in the world, and now third. Anybody know who the first biggest oil producer in the world is? We are. We are.
You hear that?
We are. We produce 13 to 14 million barrels of oil a day. We export 4 million barrels a day. So what Saudi Arabia used to be able to be, what we call the Federal Reserve of oil, they could control the price. They would up they had reserve. They can go 2 million barrels a day. They could bring it down. Sorry?
Cartel, I was just
They were their own card, yeah. It was an oligopoly with the head of, but now, because all the natural resource discovery has been in the States, in Brazil, in Guyana, this little country in northeast South America, Exxon and Chevron are fighting over, biggest oil reserves maybe around. All the oil's here. They can't control it anymore. So what I'm saying is they've weakened themselves because they don't have the money to push around everybody. And so you have all these smaller countries, Iran, right? The UAE, all of them sort of, the king's a bit wounded. Let's kind of take, that's what's going on geopolitically.
That's good. That was a good summation. You know what? You want to comment on
I
that?
was just going to say, Turkey's also running away from, there's a vacuum, right, of leadership, I would think. I mean, it's pretty obvious that this country is kind of taking a backseat to what we used to be. So I think that goes without saying, too, that I think everybody's looking to find the winning team and find the right leader, right? And, who's going to step into the leadership role. So I think you're seeing some of that, too, like separating from the West a little bit and,
Yeah, I think the third article, guys, was the one that really kind of hit me. And that is this one right here, if you can see the title, where it says, Turkey heads to Arab League ministerial for first time in 13 years. So they were like kind of on the outside looking in. And Ted, you talked about Saudi Arabia, being the one that was kind of wielding the power. So we're kind of seeing a power shift, and that really kind of lines up with Ezekiel 38 and 39. Not everybody's on the same page with when that'll actually happen, but this is what I want you to see. In the article, this is a line I pulled out. The article notes, Turkey and Iran see this as a once-in-a-generation opportunity to rally the world against Israel. So again, to your point, the pieces on the chessboard, I mean, they're all being put into place. They're all aligning. I thought that was, pretty fascinating for them to say that. Any other comments on that? You may not. I just thought I'd show that. So, what were you going to say?
I think, to John's point, I think things are lining up on the chessboard as we see it. They don't even know what they're doing, right?
Yeah,
They're
that's
walking
the crazy
in
part.
darkness.
And here's a map, right, guys? So putting up a map for everybody in the church to see. 4 of the names in Ezekiel 38 are currently in modern-day Turkey. So if you look up there in Turkey, where is it over there? Yeah, so Gomer, Togmara, and Meshach, and Tubal, those 4 right there, that's modern-day Turkey. So all of this is kind of aligning again. The Bible that we read, it's incredible to see these ancient prophecies, coming to fruition in our lifetime, and see these countries kind of aligning there. So,
I mean, the other thing
I
I'm
know
going
you
to say to
studied
that
this.
from a prophetic standpoint, just a comment that you're all
Yeah.
probably realizing, but I mean, I just think we always need to remember, like, when we think about prophecy, like, we could be sitting up here and, maybe your Bible would be talking about, I don't know, pick a country, Italy, whatever, small country, like something that has nothing to do with this map and nothing to do with Israel. Like, think about the fact that thousands and thousands of years ago, our Bible was written and talked about stuff like this. And look at that map and look at how it's got it all planned. Israel wasn't even around. Like, I mean, you have to remember this stuff when you think about it, that the prophecies are like, this isn't just, I don't think, it's not some random, like, who got lucky and, wow, they picked a bunch of countries that happen to just be around Israel. Like, it's amazing to think about prophetically in the context that look at that map and realize, like, the Lord is telling us this way, way in advance because, again, if you're overwhelmed and stuff's crazy, like, just remember, like, he's got it in control. He's got it in his hand. Like, look, like, he told us about this stuff because he knows where it's heading. Everything's happening according to plan. It's not out of, it's not falling apart. It's falling into place, right? You say that.
I think the other thing that's interesting about the map is there's been 7 wars against Israel, I think, since they came in 48. Jordan and Egypt have been in every one of them, but they're not on this list. And they're friends with Israel now. If you would have said 10 years ago, who's going to be in war? Oh, it's got to be Egypt, right? They're the ones who, in Jordan, they're always going to go after. It's like John said, it's amazing how things line up when they're supposed to line up.
And I would just add, just as a comment, is a lot of this, like this crazy attack strategy, is also because the U.S. is what the U.S. is to Israel. Without the U.S. backing, there's a good chance that this wouldn't even be needed. So when we talk about the atmosphere that we're living in with the election coming up and support for Israel, we hear these things being said. There are big powers going on, and that's why I think a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in our country that has people so hyped up on two sides of the fence, this is what's behind it. This is what's behind it. And everything is an echo chamber. So you're only hearing what you want to hear. And so there's vitriol across the board, but this is a representation of the powers and the things that you are subjected to while we're out here. And you're like, well, what's going on? Well, the world is feeling this right now. It's not just the U.S. or just Israel. Obviously, it's different in Israel, but this is a good example to show you where we are, what we're doing.
Good name.
And let's not kid ourselves. This is a Cold War going on. These are the rooks and knights. These are not the big players on the chessboard. Who are the big players? It's us, China, and Russia. And China and Russia are trying to get a stronghold in the Middle East. As a matter of fact, for shipping, we're very concerned that China and Russia want to put ports in the Red Sea for their Navy bases, which would be disastrous for shipping if they think, listen, if this current administration, I said this in London when I was last week, if this current administration had the backbone, we could take out the Houthis tomorrow. We won't do it. Why? Because Iran says don't. Are you kidding me? Because this will be war. Why? It'd go nuclear, and Russia would be behind it. There'd be tactic. You could have, if we took out the Houthis, according to what you're hearing through the back channels, you could have a tactical nuclear war there, a tactical nuclear war in the Ukraine. You could have China going in not by sea but by air into Taiwan overnight. Things are very close. All the safety's been taken out, right? Anything, it's like the Cuban Missile Crisis. One mistake, and things can light up very quickly today. There's no
Yeah, it's a
cushion
good-
anymore.
Good comparison. Jamal, you want to say something? I know you want the mic? Yeah, I'll walk over to you.
Bring the flowers back. Well, I think they were nice.
It's funny when you look at this map because a lot of the reasons what you see with the Middle East, there's so much internal fighting inside their own countries. But when you think about Sharia law and you think about the understanding of if you follow the caliphate where you have one central ruler, what's going to happen is as these guys talk about uniting, it's going to be one Islam that's going to be very strong with one person taking over all of that. Like this isn't a like I look at this map and I like completely geek out. This isn't a play just against Israel. This is saying, well, Turkey and Iran unify. We could take out Iraq, who we've been fighting with forever, unify with Afghanistan, and we're putting the chess pieces all around here to centralize on Israel, take over that area. And when you think of biblical end times, a great nation developing here, as Ted said, probably under a China or Russia.
Yeah, Muslim? That's what we talked about yesterday. So he's not only a principal, but he has a strong global history background, right? That was good. That was good what you said. Yeah. Somebody, what? Oh, so I was just saying to Jamal, I said, so you think the Antichrist is going to be Muslim?
I do.
Yeah, very
I do.
possible. Yeah.
Revelation could be
yeah.
factual, could be, figurative, but there's a lot of beheading in this Revelations. And what do they do for the enemies, for the Islamic? They behead them. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that draw you that way.
And I'll turn the page to this because you brought up Iran. Obviously nuclear proliferation, and they're on the verge of that. Will Israel make a preemptive strike? At some point soonish. So what do you guys? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, first, I find this article a little funny because if anybody still thinks they don't have nuclear weapons yet,
yeah,
then,
right.
But anyway, yeah, to that point, James. I mean, it's all culminating. There's this whole anti-Israeli sentiment. You're seeing it. It's funny. I heard a guy talk this week, and he was talking about, let's just suppose Israel knew it was coming on October 7th, and when it happened a year ago, and what would they have done about it? Like, what could you have possibly done about it, right? And to think if they would have went in and, let's say, oh, we know that this is coming, so let's go stop it. Like, you see the sentiment and the anti-Israeli sentiment now. Could you imagine if they did something without provocation? I mean, so the point is just that all this stuff is culminating towards, in our Bible, we've all heard of this peace agreement that's going to happen and stuff, right? That Israel's going to have, and the Antichrist is going to kind of lead this thing. And you have to have disruption, war. You can't have a peace agreement when everything's peaceful, right? So again, everything is building blocks. Just keep
That's a good sentence
getting
you said.
stacked. Just
Yeah.
keep. Everything's heading towards the same culmination, and we're witnessing it. You guys, we're living in history. Like, you're walking through biblical history. Like when Daniel was, you read those pages and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Like, and how did he do it through this? And all, that's you. Like, you're living that. Now, maybe it takes 20 years. Maybe it takes whatever. Maybe it takes another year. Who knows? Things are moving super fast. We all feel it. But I'm just telling you, like, perspective. Remember, every day you get up, it's a gift, and you're living through biblical history. Like, you're watching things unfold that prophets and people before us in the faith would have been like, oh my God, I would have loved to live during that time.
Yeah,
and
you're
see
right.
what was happening.
Yeah, when some people ask my views, and I'll say I can give you my Christian views, but here's my geopolitical views. You need more than one. Well, I would say I tell people this is like the 1930s from what I can read.
Yes.
The Europe and the States sleepwalked, and they were being tried to peace treaty with people
Appeasement.
who wanted war. And I think we're doing the same thing. Iran's only looking for time. Why? If you have one nuclear weapon, it's not good enough, right? You shoot it off, you're like, oh well. It's like having one bullet in a gunfight. They need more than they need multiple nuclear weapons, and this is what they're doing now. So, in my opinion, Israel's going to have Netanyahu's going to have to. They did it in the 80s, right? Read the book called "Raid on the Sun" about that. When they bombed the nuclear sites, they're going to have to do it again. I don't see any other option for Israel but to do that. There's no way around it because they will come after. You have all the leadership of Iran. They're publicly saying there's no need for Israel on the map anymore. I mean, listen, read what Hitler said in the 30s. Right? I don't understand the people in leadership these days. They've lost their mind.
I just want to throw a stat out I heard along this line that I heard this week, a guy that I respect. He said Hezbollah has the 5th most amount of missiles, just missiles,
Short
in
range.
the world.
Short range.
If you add them all up,
Yeah.
if all the countries, Hezbollah, number 5.
So Iranian proxies, like it.
They're not even-
You know what we're gonna do for a sec? Oh, you had to.
Just want to say one.
Yeah,
It's
go
kind
ahead.
of a joke. They say Iran will fight to the last drop of blood of all their proxies.
That's good.
They're very smart.
Very good. Hey, I'm gonna pause for a second. We don't usually do this. Does anybody have questions on what we're talking about right now? Eileen, I saw your hand. Yeah, I'll walk back to you. On with Israel? Is that because I'm gonna spend a Sunday to talk about all this.
These upcoming elections, what influence as Americans do we have, supporting, not supporting? Do you have any feedback on that?
I
Loaded
think I've said this
question.
before,
Loaded.
but there's books written about countries who rise and fall, their relation to the Jews and the Israelites, right? Portugal with their armada that got wiped out. They had kicked out the Jews. Spain did it. Spain is probably one of the poorest countries, really, believe it, in Europe. And I think God punished them for the Spanish Inquisition. I have a I have a funny book, not from a good Jewish friend of mine, called Jewish Pirates of the Caribbean. They left Spain and they became pirates in the Caribbean. They had nowhere else to go. But you can see, and I think the U.S., where were we the strongest ever? I think it was right after World War II, 1948, when Israel became. Harry Truman, a Christian, said, this is going to be a country, and the rest of the UN had to follow. And I think we were around to make sure this child grew up to be able to defend themselves. And maybe he doesn't need us they don't need us anymore. I don't know if that's true, but it's kind of in the back of my head.
That's what I think. With you on that. And just Eileen, what you said, and we're going to touch on this later on, but when it comes to, the political, the election that's coming up in less than 2 months now, it's not about voting for a person. We'll just say this. You're voting policies. You're voting like which candidate best represents your Christian worldview. First and foremost, both candidates are, you can look at both of them. What did you say, Pastor? Yeah, very flawed. Both of them, very flawed. So to look, I think so many people I hear, even Christians, and they're voting for a person, and I'm going, I could care less about either person. I care about their policies. And this is an issue about which one is better going to support Israel. So for me, I don't know. That's how I kind of look at things, and not to get too deep into that.
Yeah.
But
it's funny. I think we all make this assumption that we think before our current candidates in the last few elections, I think we all sit there and think that actually candidates before them weren't flawed, which is kind of funny, right? But we do. We all have this bubble. I watched, stupidly, I don't know why I did this, but I watched the Nixon-Kennedy debate from like 60s recently on YouTube, and I watched the whole thing. It was just like unedited, and the cordialness and the professionalism and the way they just talked and the substance of their answers was amazing. And it was like, and they were just very bad. Well, that's a good point. And, but, let me tell you about what I'm going to do. And it was a whole different world. And we were left with this like feeling of security, and I don't think it's unintentional that the Lord has ripped the rug out from under that and said, this is a facade. You can't rely on any of this stuff. So stop thinking your government's going to fix it. That person's going to do it.
Right.
This party will fix it. Somebody else is going to fix it. Like, there's nothing to fix. There's only one person, and he's coming back soon, and he's going to establish his kingdom, and that's what's going to fix everything. All this other stuff is just a lot of noise that we got to walk through, and really, it's a test of our faith. It's just the temperature keeps going up, temperature's going up. We need to just keep standing.
yes,
Like that woman.
but it doesn't mean we don't. Obviously, you would agree with
gotta-
this.
yeah.
Get educated.
Oh,
know where candidates stand
Get
on
educated.
issues.
Look,
and-
guys, you can't.
and vote.
You have to
And
go
vote.
find truth. Like, if you're going to be passive and rely on, let me flip the TV on and see what's going on in the world today, good luck. Because I hate to tell you, but everything's propaganda now. He said it earlier. Everybody's trying to either sell you something or make you think a certain way. I hate to tell you, but that's true. And you know what? Again, it was true in the 50s and 60s. You just didn't notice it as much. Everything's been exposed, and we all know it now. And so, it's like when your eyes get open, you can't unsee what you saw. You guys, a lot of you in here have seen too much. You know too much. But there's a lot of people that haven't and don't. And don't make the mistake as Christians of taking the bait, like we see sometimes in these, what we call debates. Don't make the mistake of like getting into the politics or the surface issue, blue, red, hey, well, you should be thinking this and that. That's not the point. Steer the conversation to the bigger picture, which is what God is doing. Yeah, everything's being exposed. Isn't it crazy? Like, God's behind all this, I think. He's showing us that we can't rely on ourselves because look at us. We've messed everything up. I'm just...
No, yeah.
Kennedy won that debate? Because Nixon sweat. Because he was sweating so much
first
profusely.
televised
Is
television.
that true?
And he had-
Quick to give you. You want to give the history lesson?
And he had
or
a
you want me
dark
to give it
suit
too?
on,
Yeah.
and Nixon had a gray suit on.
Nixon came out of the hospital. He was very clumsy and literally hit his knee on the side of a car door. So he went into the hospital. He came out. He looked gaunt. he sent one of his aides to his store to get like this stuff called like shave stick. Kennedy had been tanning, Kennedy, right? He was out in the sun. He looked great. He looked very comfortable. We all know this. You guys obviously know it. People that listened to the debate on the radio thought Nixon won. They couldn't see the candidates. People that watched it live, first televised debate, thought Kennedy won. Yeah, Nixon was very uncomfortable. He looked like he was going to be embalmed, right? Like he just like it was. So you watch that. There's so much the history that's there. But to your point, they talked about real issues.
Sorry, and if we think 2020 was an issue with the way the election,
Yeah.
Nixon really won 1960. We all know it.
100%. Yeah,
Because
he
the
should have been
Democrats
president.
stole all the dead people who voted in Chicago to give Illinois to Kennedy, and Nixon he could have gone against it, and some of the people in the party told him to push it, and he said, "I won't do this to the country."
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Then he did other. Yeah. Wow.
Going back to
I gotta stop.
Going back to your question, a good example of this, Neil deGrasse Tyson was talking about the administrations, who was pro-science, who was pro-NASA, who was pro, and he said, they were trying to get him into a political debate. He's like, I can't tell you about that. I can tell you who gave us the money. I can tell you who put it in their budget and made us a priority in their budget. And that's the only way that he would answer the questions. So going to the substantive policy aspect of it, that's what we have to be looking at.
Yeah, interesting. You guys see what the Pope? We didn't put this in the news, but see what the Pope came out and said this week, which I was
First time I agreed with him.
I know,
First
me
time ever.
too. But you got to vote for the lesser of the evils, like the two evils, right? I mean, one, he kind of disparaged Trump with his immigration policy, with open borders, and then he went after Harris on the abortion issue. So again, though, I thought he was taking a stance just by the fact he even said that, which was,
I agree with him. Listen, can I just say, there's one person I'm going to vote for, but if you're a Republican, they're not anti-abortion, they're not dealing with the dead. That will sink us, and nobody's dealing with it. So I will pick the lesser of the two evils. I agree with him.
like that. Good statement. All right, I'm going to move to, as it pertains to this, I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but the anti-Semitism that is being ramped up in the, we're seeing it more and more and more. This was just, look at the title of this, Hamas murders 6 hostages, Israel is blamed. How does that really make sense to you? And I don't know if you saw this one in the news. This was Columbia. My niece, our niece, and Jen's and Scott's daughter, Lindsay, graduated from there. 3 Columbia deans resigned over texts that touched on anti-Semitic, just information. And we're seeing this more and more everywhere you look. And I think Israel is being painted as being, the Jewish people are being painted as being the bad guys. Situation, and going back to what you said before with the event that we're almost the 1-year anniversary of the attack there. So I don't know if you wanted to quick comment on that.
I think if you read historians who are also sociologists, they'll tell you if you look through history, what happens is when there's young people who they have this feeling like today, like they're saying, this system sucks. It doesn't work for me. The Jews seem to be the canary in the coal mine, the first target, right? Because it's the enemy behind everything. We all understand that. But that's what's happening here. I think these young people who are screaming, they're pro-Palestinians and they want to help them. I think there's an inner screaming that I grew up in a system that doesn't work. What's happening? Now, let me just say this. Maybe you agree, maybe you don't. I think some of those people are closer to the kingdom than the people that love the system as it's going. Why? Because Jesus spoke to the people on the outskirts who were just, the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman, because the people who were saying, I'm on the outskirts, society doesn't work for me, there's something wrong. Instead, the people on the inside who are like, this is great, I go to church every day, God, you stay up there, you don't hurt me, you don't kill my kids, everything's going to be fine, we'll have a deal. Those people are farther away from the kingdom than these people are. So I don't have the visceral anger against these kids. I'm just praying for them most of the time. Sometimes I get pissed off. But you know what I mean? I think God's working in that. And like he did in the
Amen.
60s with the hippies.
Yeah,
a lot of them
yeah,
became
yeah.
Christians.
Yeah.
Just also to that, I think a lot of this is, again, it's the powers, right? So when we talk about these kids seeing these things, they're seeing what they're being fed. They're seeing people that look like them, people in their age group, maybe their little brother or sister, and they're seeing and watching and hearing the stories. And it's a classic story of David versus Goliath. That's how it looks when it comes across on social media. You guys have all the resources and you're doing this to these poor people. That's the narrative that's being played out, and that's where a lot of this is coming from. And it's a hard thing to try to talk into that. But that's where it's coming from. And it's a narrative that is being fed, and it's one-sided, one direction on it, and it's something we have to, I don't know what the combat is. The only way to combat it is to educate them, right, and to talk to them. But the adults at these universities are also propagating it, which is what you're seeing there. So why is it fostering? It's because there is a group, there is a power that is saying, no, that these people are terrible. And so that is what we're up against.
You know, it reminds me of what you said yesterday, the Jordan Peterson. Oh, wait, no, that was wasn't you guys. That was last night at dinner. We're talking about Jordan Peterson, who's, I mean, college, I don't want to, like, deviate too much and digress, but the school he's, like, setting up and, you know, getting some of the foremost professors in the world, right, to teach classes. And I guess feeling like they're, you know, not very as much liberal, not woke. It is the language he's using. But very interesting. I don't know if you guys saw any of that, but I thought that was kind of, you just made me think of it, Naeem, when you were just talking. I'm going to move on. Yeah.
No, I would just say one thing to Ted, and I had this thought this morning about it, because the woman at the well, I was thinking about this, I was thinking about the woman at the well, and this particular slide, and I was just like, wow, Jesus got it. Like, he understood what she was thinking, what she was subjected to, and his position to her was compassion. And, you know, for especially for the younger people, my heart breaks because I see and I kind of get what they're seeing, and it's like, all right, let's just have more of a conversation so we can talk more about it. But it's one of those things where it's in the atmosphere, and we respond with love, obviously, as a Christian, but we have to also respond with truth as to what's going on. And it's ugly, and it's going to keep getting uglier. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, of course it is. The Bible talks, it has to happen. Yeah.
I just wanted to add
okay,
the
go ahead.
anti-Semitics thing to me is just kind of amazing, because it just reminds me of how history repeats itself. And history repeats itself over and over because we forget. We forget what happened in the past, and then we just get so far removed we don't even know, or we don't think it applies, or, you know, whatever. And on a grand scale, and also individually, right, we do things in our lives where we're like, things are good now, and then we forget that, you know, gosh, look how far God's taken me, and then I forget and I fall back, and then it's like, oh, gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this again. I'm right back where I was. And it's amazing to me, whether it's 9/11, you talk to young kids now, they don't even, a lot of kids, we stand up here and talk about 9/11 like it was yesterday, but there's a certain age group that looks at you like, you know, in your class.
Teaching a class, no,
You're
kids
teaching
don't
it, and
know,
they're
they
looking
weren't
at you
alive.
like it's just another history thing in a book from, might as well be the War of 1812 for some kids, honestly. And you know, that's hard to say, but that's what's amazing to me when you think about what happened in World War II and the Holocaust. And then, like, how do I sit here, when this first started happening, I'm like, I know how, but I'm like, how could people, even non-Christians, possibly get back to this point after the Holocaust?
Yeah,
like,
I know.
How does that happen?
If you
Ours.
don't have a Christian view and you don't understand that we're a fallen creature that needs salvation and needs to have the Spirit lead us, you think man's going to get better. All my European friends, when Putin put all those people on the border of Ukraine, I was the only one in the room, and they ridiculed me because they said, guys, he's going in. Oh, you Americans, you're always talking about war. I said, yes, because I understand humanity. We're fallen. And they were like, what the heck is this guy talking about? But if you don't, we can see things, as you said, better than the rest of the world, because we know where we're going, we know where we came from, and we know man left to himself is a disaster.
It's such a good point, Ted. I remember you're bringing me back to, like, I don't know what class it was, but maybe in college, but I think it was like sociology, psych class, something. And the first day is basically like, is man inherently good or inherently evil? Like, that's how it starts. And you have to start from that premise, right? Because to your point, if you think he's good, then you can fix things and you can do things. And if you think he's bad, well, then eventually, no matter what you do, it's all going to come off the side of the road, right? And there's a verse in Jeremiah that talks about the heart of man is depraved and
wicked.
You know, and I've always stood on that and said, well, that's my answer to that question, because that's what it says in the Bible.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, we have to be aware of that.
All right, boys, I'm going to fast forward and try to just hit a couple of topics quickly, like lightning round, okay? So we have some eclipses coming up, right? Am I on the right slide? Yeah, I'm on the right slide. Ring of Fire solar eclipse. In 2024, 2 eclipses. solar eclipses, right? First one happened, remember, in April. It was a pretty cool event for people in the world. The second one is going to be on October 2nd. When it occurs, this is the interesting part, the sun will have gone down in Israel, and the festival, Rosh Hashanah, will have just started. Is it a coincidence, this article, is it a coincidence that the first solar eclipse of 24 just happened to fall on the very first day of the first month of the Hebrew calendar? And the second solar eclipse of 24 just happens to fall on the day that is celebrated as the Jewish New Year.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. I
just
know I
wanna
said
say on
that
the
kind of
eclipses,
fast,
we've
but
talked-
pretty.
We've talked
wild.
a lot about
I
eclipses.
know you have. You
and
know, yeah.
I'm just going to say, like, look, it's not like there's eclipse coming tomorrow, so the end of the world's the next day. Like, I mean, I just think we need to remember, like, God put the moon, the stars, that there's signs and seasons and things that, like you said in the beginning, that we need to know the times of the seasons. They're there to just remind us. They're checkpoints. They're like, hey, if you're not paying attention, I'm doing something. Pay attention. That's what it is. It's not like this means tomorrow the world ends. I think we just need to remember that when we talk about these eclipses, like, I know the last one we spent a lot of time on, and I'm sure probably people are like, yeah, you talked about this last time, and that was like, but I mean, there's a lot that God's trying to tell, and he has to shout it from the heavens because he can't get our attention sometimes, and it's an unfiltered communication.
John,
You had something good to say.
I'm kind of 80% there with this. But the one thing that the Lord reminded me of was that when the Star of Bethlehem came out, who missed it? The people that should have known. Not one person had to go and find. It was people probably that were taught by people who were taught by Daniel, right?
Yeah.
Because
Astrology, yeah.
these guys came from thousands of miles. They're the only ones who knew it. Nobody else saw it. The inner group never sees the signal they're supposed to see, all through history. So if you want to say this is foolishness, go right ahead. Because God's talking, as John said, Genesis 1:14, for signs and seasons. And is it happening this time? I mean, you can string them out, and maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't happen. But there's something going on in the stars, in the skies. And I think all this horoscope, I was going to say a bad word, junk, the devil has taken and made it his story with the zodiac signs. And
So,
it's
that's
really the
well said.
sign for us Christians of the glory of God all the time.
Yeah.
We have to take that back. And I think it's kind of sneaking through with all these eclipses coming. And I agree with John. Something's happening, and we better at least pay attention to it.
All right, I'm going to move on I'm going to fast forward here a little bit, boys, and hit you with this. I'm going to take you to the World Economic Forum, right? And I don't know how many of you know the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, right? We've mentioned them before. But we thought it was interesting. This organization, Schwab, is promising that the world is on the cusp of an era of shock events, right, that are going to hit. So now this should hit where we live. Right, so here are these individuals, I think many of them nefarious characters, right, that are behind the scenes pulling the strings on a lot of what we see and what happens, what transpires in the world. But for us, like, they're not Christians by any means, and talking about a shock of events that are going to be coming in a post-pandemic era. This is from them, their website.
I was just going to say to that point, I'm in the insurance industry, and we look at things from a different perspective. And we, just secularly we talk, and you know what a black swan event is. You've heard of this before, and this is supposed to be the one in a 1,000-year, like, oh my gosh, nobody saw this coming at all. And to be honest with you, not in a Christian context. Like, when we're always like, so what we do is, like, we're evaluating risks all the time, and we're trying to anticipate what's going to happen, right? So we can not lose money on insuring that. That's the basic thing that we do, right? And so black swan events throw everything out of whack, right? You didn't see that coming. You just lost $10 million, whatever. The black swan events used to be like hundreds, 200,000 years. They're like every 10 years now. Like, there's a flood that used to be 1,000. Now that happens like every other year.
Like it's every
There's
year or two.
There's
Weather,
the
like
damages.
controlling the
Are,
weather.
everything's the damages are through the, like, the things that are even corporately, like, things go under billions and billions and billions of dollars. Like, it's unfathomable. And I just say that because look, it's not going to get better. There's going to be more stuff, where we all hear all the time, the electric grid is teetering, and, we're also dependent on cyber and the technology, and what if that goes south? And practically speaking, I think it's
When?
smart. We need to be thinking about
When that goes south.
when it goes south, and you've had enough warnings to know, just be practical. Just do some practical things.
You're
to
even
prepare.
talking about that. I was in Dubai when the cloud seeding happened. I flew in that day. Okay, so I don't think I mentioned this, but I was there, and I'm like, this is historic flooding, but it was caused by the government that they did this. So I'm just saying, throwing that out there, it's crazy what we can do in the science, and go ahead.
Just
Yeah,
a
go-
quick
go-
add,
yeah.
Not going down the conspiracy theory ladder, right?
Yeah.
But if we
No, go ahead.
Well, if we just go through history, right? You've got AIDS during a transition. If you go
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right. We had the swine flu, avian flu, Zika, H1N1. Those were big deals.
Oh, we got monkeypox is coming too.
We had COVID-19
Yeah.
just recently.
Yeah, that's
And,
coming.
some of this stuff, I don't know if it came from a bat when we're talking about COVID-19. It's just
Yeah.
interesting that it's happening, and we're hearing the triggers about these things around transitions of power, especially big transitions of power. So I just think
Good
it's a little
point,
bit
Ian.
interesting there
Yeah.
when it comes to that. And yes, like John's saying, these things are ramping up, where there was a lot more space between the next pandemic. Maybe that's because we're traveling more, whatever. But it is something to be said that there are things that are ramping up, and the people that are looking ahead are saying, yeah, something else is coming. And that is what they're saying.
Yeah, we need to be prepared. Well, he did a good job preparing before the COVID pandemic even hit.
Billions
What
of
was it?
dollars.
What was the exercise called? 101 or 20, whatever it was? 201. Yeah.
Here's my problem with guys like Bill Gates. You know what he's doing? He's buying all the farmland in this country to change our diets. This is what I get upset with these new billionaires. Go back 100 years, and you had Mellon, and you had U.S. Steel, all the guys who Carnegie and J.P. Morgan. What do they do with their money? They started libraries, they started hospitals, they helped society. These guys just
Not
build big
Rockefeller.
mega yachts and shoot themselves up into space. At the end times, people will be lovers of money, lovers of self, lovers of pleasure. These guys are the nefarious people you talk about. The problem with nefarious people is, I don't think there's as many as we think. The problem is they're surrounded by weak people. The Prime Minister of Canada is weak. The Mayor of London's weak. The Prime Minister of Germany's weak. There's a lot of weak people in politics that are just going to go along with the nefarious people because they want to be safe and they want to be comfortable. And that's what happens in history. It's one Hitler that can move 1,000 weak people in his country.
Yeah.
Well, and then it's also about power and control. And we talked about this yesterday. Where we are right now, we have individuals that have the power to turn the lights on and turn the lights off. If you think of like Facebook, right? How many different businesses are connected to Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat? If they turn that off, people lose homes. They lose their livelihood. What would you give to make sure you kept your livelihood? You look at Elon Musk with Starlink. Like a lot of people around the world rely on that for just to have internet. What would you do to make sure you still had your connection to this is the age that we're living in. Bill Gates, there are certain individuals in sectors that literally control the whole pie.
I've read just the other day, Gates is putting up also his own satellites that can track every acre of the world every second.
Wow.
Very small these days, not like the old days.
You brought up Musk. I mean, his eyes have been opened, I would say, the past year. You see what he's writing, and I think he's a marked man. I worry about his safety.
Everybody.
I do.
Anybody
I really
against
do.
the narrative, right?
What were you going to say?
Ted, you just made me think of this. I'm going to try to get it right. What's the phrase? So weak men make tough times make strong men make good times, and good times make weak men.
Wow. All right, you know what? I feel like we should start to wrap this up. Does anybody have any questions, comments, anything? We'll start with questions.
No questions about the Jets, right?
No.
Like I said, tough times make.
Whatever the spread is today, I don't bet, but they're going to cover today. They're going to win today, big, playing Tennessee. If they don't, I'm done. I'm out. Like, I don't want to hear about the Jets, right?
Sign
if
of
they
the
lose
end
today,
times. If James
honestly,
is out of the Jets, it's
if they lose today, it's over. The season's over. Giants are horrendous, epically bad. All right, anyway, do we have any questions? Anything that you heard today? Anything you want to comment on? Yes, Nance.
Is it on? Yeah. The echo chamber. So you have to question everything you hear. The problem is the media has the microphone. So I think as Christians, we
Good way to
be
say it. Yeah. Media is
so
the microphone.
discerning about things we hear. Sadly, since COVID, I feel like I can't trust anybody. Can't trust the medical world, can't trust the government, can't trust the media. And as Christians, we have the truth, Jesus Christ, living inside of us, and he needs to be our umpire. And it's amazing to me, Ted, when you spoke about the critical issue of this election being the ability to negotiate world peace, keep craziness in check. You never hear that in the debates. You never hear that in the political realm, you know? And I think as Christians, we really need to know what the issues are, and we need to get out and vote. Just need to get out.
I think this is a great thing for the church. All the stuff that we relied on, he stripped from us. And we think, like, for example, when the Christians left Jerusalem and they spread out, right, the gospel, they didn't do it because they were forced to. The Romans came in and wiped them out, and they had to run. So that's what he does to us. Anybody ever have a parakeet? You take him out of the cage, you put him in the room, and you let him fly around, and you don't let him land. You just follow him with the towel, and you don't let him land anywhere but that cage. Not in the bookcase, nowhere, until he knows he can only land on that cage, and that's what he's doing to us. Everything you love, the media, the government, everything else that you loved, I'm stripping from you. Can't land there. Come back to home.
And remember that media is no longer information, it's influence. So remember that. Every time
Good,
you're
wow.
getting something back, it's
They have the
not
microphone
information
media is
anymore.
That's good.
It's
That was
influence.
very good. I like that. Well, Naeem, what do you want to close with? Something?
But the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. It's kind of what we're talking about, right? Therefore, right, since all these things will be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you be in holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God, because of which the heavens will be dissolved, being on fire, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. What type of people should we be after hearing everything we've just heard? How do you respond to a Sunday like this, right? So the first part is, it's the church's job to educate and inform the saints, to say, hey, this is what's coming. Do you see what's going on out there? And to give you a biblical worldview to say, hey, this is in your Bible. Nonpartisan, there's no side here. It's just what the Lord said was going to happen, and here we are. And when we see these things, we should be encouraged that the Bible is true.
And
How should we conduct ourselves? Well, if the Bible is true, then I do see all of that going out there, but I have the joy of the Lord inside of me because I know how the story ends.
Amen.
He is looking out for me. He's looking out for my family. He's looking out for my kids. His plans for me are good. His plans for my children are good. His plans for my community are good.
Amen.
He tells me to love my neighbor as myself. He tells me to pray for my enemies. He has given me the blueprint on how to conduct myself, even though all of this rages on. Because we here are not going to be speaking to Erdogan in Turkey. Maybe Ted, you might. It could happen,
Yeah, right.
right? We're not going to be there. Where does our influence lie in? Our influence lies in petitioning our Father, Jesus Christ, and abiding in that space.
You could have preached today, man. Like
No,
you,
This,
like you.
we did.
You're on
Worship
fire
did.
today. No. Hey, I got to tell you, again, I say this every time we do this. Give them a round of applause for giving their time to come up here and to share. This, I personally, I walk out of here I love these. And we feel it's of the utmost importance that we continue to do these periodically and inform you. And we won't be leaders that, are not making our congregants aware of what's happening. We're going to know the times in which we live.
Can I just leave one thought as an
Leave
encouragement?
us and then
We
pray
can
us
leave
out.
on this if you want.
Yeah.
Just a word of encouragement. I felt this week because I saw a story. If you want to go look it up, you could see there's something going on at Ohio State University with the football team. And
Sorry.
That's right. It's a Christian. There's like a whole revival going and there's baptisms and people getting saved, and it's awesome, right? And we see these things and we hear these stories every once in a while, and you're like, oh, it sneaks through the media somehow. You get it, right? And I just want to say, like, we talk a lot about the rapture in this place. Talk about like end times. We talk about stuff that a lot of people don't want to touch, right? And I know there's this feeling that you can get like, oh man, life is so hard. Like, I just, I've been there. We've all, oh man, I just can't wait till he comes back, man. Just, can you come back tomorrow? Because I got this test coming up, and it's like, oh my God, and it's like, it just shows me, like, when I heard this story of all these people getting saved, and this guy was a genuine, the things, this is a 20-something-year-old kid or 19, and when you heard him speak, you were like, oh my God, he's really got the gospel, like, he really gets it. And it was like, if the Lord came back like last year or last week, we're like, they don't get saved. Like, I'm just telling you to be encouraged. Every time somebody gets saved, every time you witness to somebody, every time you influence somebody, every time you hear about somebody giving their life to Christ, they're in the kingdom, and that might not have happened if he came, because the Bible says God's waiting for the fulfillment of the Gentiles. Like, he's not coming back until he knows every single person that was going to be saved. I don't want to get into Calvinism, but every single person that was supposed to be saved is saved. And then he's coming back in the rapture, and then all this other stuff's going to happen. I just want you to be encouraged. Like, be encouraged. You see somebody get saved, be like, thank you, Lord, man. I'm so glad that happened, or have some influence in that. Like, be encouraged to go out, speak, do those things.
You pray us out. We're not going to have a psalm, but just maybe end in a prayer,
Yeah.
please.
Well, Lord, we just ask you, Father, as these seeds are scattered about and planted, Lord, that we just ask that you would water them, that you would fertilize them, that you would help them to grow. And whether it was a word, a sentence, a phrase, a picture, something, Lord, just use it in every one of our lives, Lord, to influence us towards your goodness, your grace, your mercy, your truth, Lord. Lord, may your Holy Spirit lead us all into all truth, that we may walk and know the plans you have for us are good. The plans you have for Israel are good. The plans you have for this nation are good. The plans you have for this world, they're still good. They're good for people because you created us, you made us, you love us, Lord. May every single person hear the gospel, come into the kingdom that's supposed to get in, and we just want to be a part of that, Lord. We just want to help bring people to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Church, you're going to, hopefully in the future, there's going to come a time when you're going to remember we did things like this. I'm telling you, could be a year from now, could be 5 years from now, but you'll look back and go, remember when we were doing these? I think, at least that's my opinion. Have a great week. All right, we'll see you next Sunday, Baptism Sunday. Exciting.